Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Let me, first of all, recognize the presence of Honorable Alex Boyd Knights, our Speaker of the House of Assembly, Honorable Kelva Darrow, the Acting Minister for Education and Human Resource Development, other Honorable Ministers of Government, our dear Baroness Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth-elect, the former Minister for Education, Mr. Rupert Sarendo. I would like in a very special way to also recognize Mrs. E.O. Libla, the wife of our deceased dear leader, E.O. Libla. Ms. Marcella Powell, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Ambassador Steve Farrell, the Secretary to the Cabinet and other permanent secretaries, Mrs. Melina Fountain, the Acting Chief Education Officer, Mrs. Stella Libla, the Chairperson of the Vekas Village Council, Mr. Titus Francis, the Mayor of the Town of Portsmouth, Mrs. Joan Libla, Chairperson of the Parents Teachers Association, our dear principal, staff, and students of the Vekas, Thibault and Penville Primary Schools, invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, my dear constituents, friends all, good day again. I am thrilled this morning to welcome each and every one of you to the beautiful village of Vekas in general, and to my alma mater, the Vekas Primary School in particular. For me, this is a very special homecoming experience, for I have the opportunity today to once again thank those who have shaped and influenced my life and who contributed in no small way to creating the person that I am today. We are assembled here this morning to pay tribute to an outstanding lady whose roots are planted firmly in the constituency of Vekas, and who, through dint of hard work and perseverance, together with much perspiration, has achieved phenomenally on the international stage. Baroness Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General-elect of the Commonwealth Secretariat, is not the recipient today of any golden handshake or handout. Her record of scholastic and professional achievement is acknowledged and heralded by friend and foe alike as remarkable, yet she has maintained the humility and the level of social grounding that's synonymous with the Dominican characteristic we all share. And I'm sure many of you never thought she could speak Patois, notwithstanding the fact that she left Dominica at age 2.5. And many of us who have remained here all our lives cannot even speak Patois. In supporting the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers to rename this institution in honor of Baroness Scotland, I reflected on the excellent campaign that she ran in the lead-up to her being elected Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Ladies and gentlemen, as Prime Minister of this country, I make it a point never to speak out of turn, and on occasion, I have opted to remain silent on matters in order to disguise or even conceal the ignorance of others. A few weeks ago, during a regular meeting of the heads of government of the Eastern Caribbean states, the issue of the campaign for the election of a new Commonwealth Secretary General was raised. Several persons in attendance were zooming in and focusing on this matter for the very first time. I had been intricately involved in the process for over 1 year. I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that Baroness Scotland was the first named candidate in the run-up to this election. I knew at every step along the way where her campaign was and what specifically was needed to gain her the victory that was required. By extension, therefore, I also knew where along the journey other candidates were and what they also would have required to secure a victory. I believe that I have contested enough elections in Dominica and elsewhere to assess the might and capacity of a candidate. The one thing I asked of her back then that was forthcoming only from Baroness Scotland's campaign was the numbers. In the lead up to and during the OECS meeting, I made direct contact before campaign, and I asked for the solid numbers. I wanted to know how we were doing. I was assured then, and this was confirmed in the first vote at the summit in Malta, that we had the required numbers to certainly get past the first round, and indeed to win the contest outright. So when some amongst us jumped into the debate at the 11th hour, making all sorts of emotional noises, I knew exactly where Baroness Scotland's campaign was positioned, and that we had the numbers required to make a success of her candidacy. I was accused by some in this country of being small-minded, selfish, and insular. But on the day of the election in Malta, some made it through to the second round and ultimately to victory, while others did not. I was satisfied then that Baroness Scotland stood the best chance of becoming the Caribbean's first elected Commonwealth Secretary General since Sir Sridhar Ramphal many decades ago. In the context of Dominica, it showed clearly the difference between astute leadership and the emotional throwing of tantrums. Baroness Scotland was ridiculed and attacked in a most vicious and personal way by some among us who, by virtue of the positions, should have known better. Even though the outcome speaks to the suitability and appropriateness of a candidacy, some are too arrogant and childish to apologize for their reckless utterances and unsatisfactory behavior. Therefore, on behalf of the government and people of Dominica today, Baroness Scotland, I wish to formally apologize to you for the less than dignified behavior of some of your compatriots who clearly were misguided and used foolishly by others. You and your team ran an excellent campaign. I was never in doubt about your capacity to win. Indeed, my confidence in your ultimate success was fortified when it was shown to me, days in advance of the meeting in Malta, that you had a clear 50% of eligible votes secured safely in the corner of Dominica. Now, on the issue of eligibility, I wish this morning to address this matter frontally. No one, barring the Honorable Minister for Education, Honorable Peter Sejean, can begin to imagine what I underwent as Prime Minister of Dominica a few years ago to establish my credentials as a Dominican, worthy of the support of the voters of this very Vickers constituency. Amazingly, at that time, the argument was that I either was not born in Dominica or that I left Dominica at a very early age, and that my mother was not born in Dominica, and therefore I was not a Dominican. Up to this day, I never really understood what the beef against my running was. Even though I went to school at this very institution where we are now assembled, even though I was born in Dominica, even though I grew up in this village we are now assembled, even though everyone knew I was raised here in Vickers by my grandmother and aunts, it took the law courts to prove that I was worthy of being called Dominican and was duly qualified to run and serve as an elected member of Parliament. A similar scenario applied in respect of Minister Sejean. So in respect of Roosevelt Skerrit, the issue was my mother or I not being born in Dominica, even though I had grown up and spent 98% of my life in this country. Now, in the case of Baroness Scotland, the argument was amazingly the opposite. It was acknowledged by her detractors that she was born in Dominica. that her mother hailed from this vicar's constituency, that she met all the credentials of being called Dominican. The argument was that she did not grow up in Dominica. Now, here it was that I grew up in Dominica, and that counted for nothing when it came to establishing my credentials. But Baroness Scotland was to be exorcised from the ballot for Commonwealth Secretary General because she did not grow up in Dominica. That was the fuzzy reasoning and logic of someone who aspired to be the leader of this country at this very challenging and dynamic period in our country's development. In the end, my dear friends, common sense and reason prevailed, and Baroness Patricia Scotland was duly elected Commonwealth Secretary General, benefiting from the support of most Caribbean countries. What this all pointed to, however, was our readiness as a people and our maturity, or lack thereof, as a civilization to step onto the world stage. We will not be taken seriously as a nation, ladies and gentlemen, if persons in high places continue to wear their ignorance as a badge of honor. There are times when we must close ranks as a people and as a nation and fall in behind the national flag. The campaign to elect a Commonwealth Secretary General was one such occasion and opportunity. There should have been no division in Dominica on this matter. In Barbados, for example, both the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition were fully in support of Baroness's candidacy, to the point where they provided open support for her candidacy. But here it was different. When I said in the last general elections campaign that certain persons were not suited for public office, persons thought I was being frivolous. But how can you have elected members of parliament behaving in so irresponsible a manner? Can you imagine the state Dominica would be in today had the national vote on December 18th last year gone any other way? But distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are ready this morning to salute a daughter of the soil, a lady who has excelled in her chosen field and who has brought much pride and honor to women of color around the world. Baroness Scotland is as deserving of this honor here this morning as any other Dominican could have been. Indeed, it can be argued that such recognition is somewhat belated, as her becoming the first female Attorney General of Great Britain ought not to have gone unnoticed years ago by the land of her birth. We speak very loosely in Dominica about the importance of the diaspora and the role it has played and continues to play in the social and economic development of Dominica. Yet, there are those among us who would seek to minimize and play down the achievements of outstanding Dominicans on the world stage. I made mention some time ago of former Attorney General Eric Holder of the United States of America, who had an entire judicial complex in Barbados named in his honor because of his ancestral association with that country. On Nevis, Nevisians do not permit anyone to forget that actress Cicely Tyson has ancestral links to that island. The former Governor General of Canada, a black woman, was born in Haiti and became the Governor General of Canada. But here in Dominica, for example, we have Kennedy Avenue, named after a former United States president who never set foot in Dominica. And our own national hospital is named after a member of the royal family, even though, unlike in many other Commonwealth countries, our head of state is a Dominican. None of the foregoing, and I'm sure there are countless other examples I could have referenced, has sparked any interest or debate in Dominica. but the honoring of a highly accomplished Dominican whose navel string is unquestionably buried in Dominica, and who speaks with pride of a Dominican ancestry, is cause for some concern in certain quarters. The fact of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that a lady from Pennville in Dominica gave birth to a daughter who went on to become the first female Attorney General of Great Britain, and who has now recently been elected the first female Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat. This distinction has brought much pride and honor to her, as it has to Dominica. The leaders of 53 Commonwealth countries voted a Dominican into office, and that, for me, was worthy of national acknowledgement and commendation. So we are gathered here this morning to help historians who will 100 years from now record that Baroness Scotland was recognized in the land of her birth by compatriots who were truly impressed and inspired by her scholastic and professional achievements. To you, the students of the Vickers Primary School, you're challenged this morning to be inspired by the achievements of this outstanding Dominican. Her mother grew up in this constituency, just as your parents and grandparents did. They struggled just as your parents are doing now to educate her and to put her on course for greater things. You're challenged this morning to set your gaze on academic and professional excellence. Dominica is where you were born. The world stage must now become your focus. We speak today of the world becoming a global village. We speak also of the era of the Renaissance man. We speak as well of global citizens. There's nothing to stop any one of you here from becoming Prime Minister of Dominica or Attorney General of Great Britain. You have in this room today two living testimonies to what can be achieved in both regards. Vickers has done it in my generation, and Vickers can certainly do this and more with you in the vanguard of its development. Residents of Pennville, Thibault, and Vickers, this is a glorious day for our constituency. Time was when such achievement could have been traced to certain urban communities in Dominica. Today, you are recognizing another major achievement from a byproduct of this constituency. You have every reason to be proud today. I wish to commend the principal and staff of the school for so readily embracing the decision to name the school in honor of Baroness Scotland. I commend the Ministry of Education and others in the government service for facilitating the decision on such short notice. Special mention must be made of Ronald, Michael Massicott, Michael Honoré, Bolo and Siko, John Christopher, and Francisca Romin, who worked tirelessly over the last several days to get this place ready for this very important ceremony. Baroness Scotland has done much for the recognition and promotion of the brand Dominica. It is our delight and honor this morning to publicly and globally acknowledge the pride and joy she has brought to us as fellow Dominicans. I am 100% in support of this honor in her name. It now gives me great pleasure to formally rename the Vickers Primary School the Baroness Patricia Scotland Primary School in honor of an outstanding daughter of this community. May God continue to bless and guide Baroness Scotland in her endeavors. May God bless Dominica, guide and protect us all. But I want to say before I leave that notwithstanding the size of our country, we must never believe that we cannot achieve great things as a country. We must always set our sights on making our presence felt and respected in the international community. And as the leader of this country, that's what I've been doing for the last 12 years. Notwithstanding any form of opposition that may come our way, we have to stand on what and for what we believe as a people. We cannot be swayed by what a few people say. And we must never, as a people, demonstrate any sense of ignorance, because we have to be enlightened. So it really disturbs me when Dominicans engage themselves in very petty issues. Here it is that we have a country to rebuild after tropical storm Erica. There are several families who are still out in shelters. There are still communities that are still cut off from Dominica. But yet still we're engaging ourselves in all kinds of frivolous and vexatious issues. While we should be focusing our energy, our resources, our talents, our skills, our prayers on rebuilding this country and rebuilding it together as a family. But we would like to see the country remain divided so that we can have a platform, a negative platform, to push our agendas. I am thankful to the Lord that the vast majority of Dominicans remain steadfast in their purpose and commitment to our country, Dominica. We have to set a better way of life for our children. We have to get our children to think positively and to do positive things. But if our society is covered with negativism, a perpetual negativism, what do we expect our children to be tomorrow? I want each one of us to do an introspection and to ask ourselves, what will be my contribution? What shall be my legacy to my country, Dominica? What kind of lessons I would like to pass on to my children and to my grandchildren? Because what you say or do will impact on where and how Dominica succeeds down the road. And if Dominica is marred with poverty, all of us will be affected. If Dominica prospers, all of us will prosper. If Dominica's roads are bad, every one of us drives on it. I do not have a helicopter or an airplane to fly to Roosevelt from Vegas. I drive the roads myself. So let us use this occasion, to build consensus on what is best for Dominica. And Baroness Scotland, you deserve this honor like any one of us. And I stand by the decision of the government and people of Dominica to recognize you by naming the school the Baroness Patricia Scotland Primary School. So that now, when I travel to India in the first week of March, I will say that I attended what is now the Baroness Scotland Primary School. And the 1.2 billion people will know who Baroness Scotland will be. So you can see where he's going to place me now and place all of us who have attended the school. I want to thank you for being here in this wonderful village. Thank you. Thank you.